Nowadays, for us pretty sedentary humans, dance is quite alarming. Like, when people get up and dance, other people notice. It wouldn't be such a big deal, I don't know, 1,000 years ago. But now it's like, what? People are dancing? What are they dancing about? What's going on? So it's a way of asking people to pay attention.
We didn't really know what we were getting into, and the rehearsals and everything were quite an eye-opener. And then the performances, you're sitting there on a dark hill at Margaret River wondering what the hell happens next. But from that very first moment, the big standout for me was the warmth and excitement. Anyone who's got their eyes open knows that, we've crashed a lot of our biodiversity. There is a planetary ecological crisis, and it's happening just as this climate change emergency, if you like, is rolling into us. And that's pretty demoralising. But the darkness you can feel is no antidote to what's happening.
We didn't fix the land. We maintained the land through our cultural practices. Here is that need again to dig deep into our consciousness about caring for country in a real practical terms. I can remember when we as Noongar people were first invited, 20, 30 years ago, to become involved in land care. That was a new language to us. All we knew about caring for country. So there was an anthropologist that came on board and he started using the language. He was coming from our language and introducing this new language that now we know what land care is.
There's lots of different ways of seeing the importance of what we do. I think as humans we've got an obligation to be a useful part of the planet, a useful part of nature, and not a destructive force all the time. And here, in this part of the world, we have a great opportunity to stitch the big evolutionary forces and the richness of biodiversity back together so it can look after itself, so it's not reliant on us. And we're doing it in ways that are just much more fun for the communities than the endless make more money and grow more wheat sort of nonsense that we've put up with.
When I think of supporting the environment or a cause, I often think of people who they go in the street and they protest, and I'm very sensitive and I have a hard time doing that. I have a hard time joining protests, even if I do believe we need them, absolutely. And I was like, this is my time. This is a time that I can actually join. And I'm not protesting, but I'm giving to something that needs me, like nature needs me.
Changing perceptions happens when you actually do something. So that's what's cool about performance. You're in the act of doing something and contemplating a theme or a creative task at the same time. And so you're in this process already of transformation. So you can change how you perceive something or someone.
I've had a few people question me, that I know throughout the community, like, How's that going to help? And it's not the direct action type of way, but I just think that's the role for the arts, in that it can be sort of lateral, and we never know what little switch is going to get flicked.
I think it's wonderful. I think, this day and age, and with what's happening, in the climate and worldwide, I think this approach is a non-threatening approach to some great inspiration for people, and it's just a wonderful way to get people thinking about things that need to be thought about for us all, for the good of all.
Art attracts people where nothing else does. Song and dance attracts people, food and music. I guess it's an entry point for people to begin those kinds of conversations. It's an entry point for people to become involved in the movement because they've been itching anyway to get their hands dirty. It's an entry point for people to begin telling these stories that connect us.
The Stars Descend is not a Dreamtime story. It is a new story created with elders, scientists, artists and communities who live and care for southern Western Australia. The Stars Descend is a story that has been crafted with deep respect for First Nations peoples. It is inspired by the care and custodianship of elders, and as a sign of respect, the story does not include traditional cultural material. We acknowledge the long history of dancing on this country, and we are honoured to be dancing here now.
The first step was I realised I just had to come up with a narrative, a story that would hold it all together. Just the bits of the story started coming, or the first draft of the story, and I really was just looking at what is the strengths of the country that we're going to traverse and the strengths of the artists I already knew that we had. I started just looking at individual items of beauty, I guess, natural beauty, so orchids, starfish. And the emu didn't come till much later, and that was in consultation with elders, with Gondwana Link. It took a good year and a half to build the teams. Always trying to employ people that lived in the community that was going to be in the project. And so going there first and seeing who's up for it and who's got the skills, or who's up for learning the skills. Russell and Neen were in a research phase in the project in 2021, and I think it was Pare Randall from Kalgoorlie. She set a task where they just smear each other's bodies like ants travelling across the terrain. And they just were the two that happened to be put together to trial it out. And I remember sitting next to Kim, Scott and a couple of other people in the studio watching them do that. You could just feel how incredible they were together. And so I just asked them at the end of that week, would they even consider attempting to do this and travelling across the whole thing, being in the whole show, and they were both instant yeses. So, but then we had to raise all the money to try and actually do that. That's hard. That's really hard what they did. Yeah. There's so much time spent through the workshop process in sharing knowledge. So whether that's the knowledge that other participants might have about the biodiversity of a place. In Parongarup, we're making dance that's around seed pods. So people are learning about the actual seed pods of Twin Creeks and how they germinate. I learned so much stuff, and we're just learning it in the process of making performance. And of course, so much generous cultural sharing. So with elders coming in to actually sit in rehearsals and watch what was being created, share knowledge, make sure we weren't touching on anything that was precious cultural knowledge. There was a learning going on for the participants, for the artists, and also for the elders. They were learning about contemporary dance and contemporary sound design. Everyone was learning.
I was keen that our First Nations people's stories come out in it. And it did. I was just thrilled. Like, that's why I did the whole, the tour, just to see how it was fitting in. You can't help to have that sensitivity or that consciousness about Noongar people's place when you're talking about natural events, you know. And so that storyline was, you know, it was delightful. The stars coming down. In our song lines and storylines, we have stories of the stars descending. You know, that's about the birth of our babies, and we call the stars ginders, you know. They're our children, and for them to come down and then birth at Margaret River, you know, that's the infusion of the Noongar story, and they're right from the word go.
The chapter that I was sonically responsible for was the stars where they actually have their descent into the Indian Ocean off Wooditjup. So I had the luxury of having space-themed sounds as they transitioned into those more earthly, worldly known sounds of, you know, of our natural world, the ocean and the birds.
The event itself was held maybe about 3 k's off the beach on a really beautiful backdrop. I took the producer's role on as Arts Margaret River because that's where I work. Arts Margaret River's been around for almost 50 years and we've got a big volunteer base, so we were able to capture that and get 35 wonderful dancers.
I was thinking about when we talk about a culturally significant site, and what we're doing here is we are dancing into the earth and creating cultural significance out of a place that, like, this is a privately owned property. It's not actually a public significant space, and yet we're putting our meaning into this piece of earth.
I mean, it's in front of the golf club, right? I've never been there. My first impression was it was pretty bare, that it had been stripped. You know, really we needed to dance on it. I thought it's a good place to do a show, a place that needs us to bring nature back to it.
Tonight begins with another song, another story, and a wonderful dance that creates another new songline. The Moody story may not tell about Aboriginal story, but it is definitely a joy to see.
Watching it and feeling it come to life with community dancers and their expressiveness and their presence and their emotionalness, and with the professional dancers weaving in between, it was just, yeah, it's incredible. It's mind-blowing to see it come to life like that and in front of an audience.
The vibe of them, they're still high. They're still really high. They're still buzzing out. They thought there'd be a come down and they know that's going to happen. But yeah, and they're all talking about now actually joining and creating their own dance group to actually continue dancing together and doing classes.
When I decided to join The Stars Descend, I asked my daughter Lily, who was 13 at the time, to join me in the project. So that was such an opportunity I felt for me to see her evolve in that creative environment. And then later on, my son wanted to do a little exhibition at the local library. He thought, I'll just give half of my money if I sell anything to the Gondwana Link. So the Gondwana Link for us, The Stars Descend, has just kept going.
There is a lot of connections that are being made, and it's almost one of the concept ideas behind it is that connecting together all those people and places and creating a new songline, as it's been said.
Northcliffe was very important way back in, I think 1996. There was a lot of logging was going on in the area, so quite a few of us were activists and protesting to try to bring awareness to the beautiful forest and the region that we live in. We believe that trees are more of an asset standing up than being chopped down. Understory, which is located where we're going to go to the celebration later, was a site-specific sculpture walk that we created in answer to the beginning of what was happening in the forest destruction around us. It's a nice small community. There's only about 200 people who live in the actual town, and then in the outlying areas of the farms and things it takes us up to about 600 people. So considering Northcliffe is such a small place, we really do a lot of stuff here to promote the arts and the environment, and so that's why The Stars Descend was just so perfect. Quite a few people who are in the community cast were actually part of the protest movement or have come in later as artists or people who wanted to live in the land and live more naturally, a less hectic life, a more authentic life.
We moved from the city 3 years ago and because of the environment, the trees, we're fortunate to live amongst trees, and we have a lot of silence, we have a lot of birds, we have a lot of peace, and no dancing experience except a few beers at the pub and jump around. But no, this is my first time really being in a performance, a dance performance, and I'm loving it, it's great.
Well, you know, historically I've been working in professional theatres in Europe, in big companies all around the world for the past 40 odd years, and had my own company here with professional dancers. But what I find really rewarding and important to work in community is the difference in the movement. Community dancers, or people that haven't danced per se before, give you a naturalistic movement that's often kind of asymmetric and a little bit bent and a little bit unusual, and I just find it so stunning. It's actually very hard for trained people to go backwards to a shape that's not contrived. So the community dancers don't contrive any of it. It's all their beautiful shapes that they make.
It's a beautiful act, so they naturally have all this authenticity that they bring, and then the way the workshops are set up, we actively encourage and try to preserve that. You can kill that authenticity pretty easy if you just come in and go 5, 6, 7, 8, kickball change, you know, you can just kill it. So that's why we work a lot in the community members creating gestures and movement material that belongs to them, that then's woven in through the choreography. So it's of them, it's for them. It makes sense, and they have an emotional connection to what they're doing. That interests me as a viewer as well.
It's the day before the big performance, so we're all very excited. It's been a terrific experience. I really enjoyed every minute of it, and it's so exciting to be part of it. And just Chrissy's a bit of a legend, I think, and I can remember seeing her shows back in the Festival of Perth in the 1980s. We used to go along and see her dance, and now to be part of that myself is just incredible.
First time I came here, I thought of an old classical theatre to start with, you know, because often in the old theatres they try to make these sort of romantic scenes with curving trees. And then obviously went back to the nature of it and the history and the ancient energy that comes from these trees. So we spent a lot of time at the beginning really responding to the shapes of the trees, the softness of the ground, and yeah, the energy that comes out of the trees and feeling that reflective energy in our bodies.
Most of my approaches when I came here is I want to just amplify what's already here. I don't want to impose something else on because it just works with the project. When I look at all these trees here, most of them have a very similar form. They've got that sort of vase type form, whereas the one that you can see in the background that I've wrapped was quite, on its own, it's a real dancer. To me, like, it's just got awesome amounts of rhythm happening in it. So I wanted to think of a way that I could really draw focus to that tree. And so that would be the core. I've used those sort of very simplified sort of fire colours, whether it be a fire or a falling star that goes from that white hot through the yellow, orange, reds and then away. From left to right of the stage, I wanted to have just little suggestions of those same colours. And so I've wrapped these sticks and added them to the trees just to define.
There's an attempt to control aesthetic through design. How good can we make the sound? How good can we make the lighting? How good can the set design be? Costume design is tricky because we're dealing with so many different body shapes and people being comfortable in different types of clothing, but we just try to get the best result we can with those parameters. If that can be taken care to as professional level as we can, the dance is then framed up inside that world.
Within the story guideline that we have, there's lots of scope for us as the dancers and for Chrissy as the choreographer to interpret this sort of forest through to a woodland type environment and how they exist in that space. And so a lot of the dance moves are based on either branch growth or root or mycelium weaving.
We talked a lot about where we would start with a piece, and we decided we'd try to put some fear into the work, and then at the end of it these beautiful orchids come out because they were the first things that grew in the forest, in the bush after the fire. So a lot of them have experienced that fire, yeah. The sound, the music's really powerful. Because I said to Dave, I want the audience to be a bit afraid when they hear that sound. And it starts really ramping up and the dancers are running and the two star performers are running as well. So there's a lot of kind of frantic energy. Dave and I have worked for months and months together and he's a magician. So I kind of give him my kind of narrative line and ideas, lots of creative words for him to work with, and then he comes back with the magic fill. And the last couple of days have probably been a bit more challenging for him because we need then for everybody to be cued into the particular sections, and the final layer of bringing the stars in, Janine and Russell, is really beautiful. It's given us that three-dimensional effect. So they've got like their own musical tropes, and we've sort of got a layering of music behind them. So it's like a landscape of musical ideas.
I really love that dance between the visual and the music as well. That dance that happens right the way towards the end of the project. It's a really fascinating process to go through and work with wonderful people that we've got on this team. I feel really honoured.
I'll acknowledge my ancestors, the Parboman people who walked this land at one with nature for thousands of years. But for the last 200 years, they've battled many adversities. But they're still here, they've endured. In this fantastic setting, you can't help but notice a magnificent karri forest nearby. Some of those trees may have been saplings when my ancestors were walking around this place. Those trees have been fortunate enough to have these long years, to live these long years through all forms of nature. Rain, inevitably some dry times, human intervention, but more importantly, they've lived through fire. Everyone who lives here in the peace and serenity of this place is familiar with what follows a fire in the forest. And what our chapter 2 is all about today, the truly splendid, very special and beautiful orchids of the area. Year after year, season after season, no matter what nature throws at them, the orchids are still showing themselves to us in the forest, and they, like the Parboman people, have endured. They are still here. We are still here.
Yeah, chapter 3. So right now we're just laying out what the soloists do. So how this project works is that we have made a whole lot of material that belongs to the stars, and then we have to decide what belongs on this country and with these people, and that's like a complex process that has to be done super quick. So this rolling thing kind of picks up some speed, and then you go out. There's a pause there. Pretty stressful. I've been working for hours last night going through all the film from what happens here, and then only have 1 hour really right now to lay all this down onto the soloist. So they have lots of movement that already in their body, and I'm just like trying to speak that movement language to them, and then that goes into the show. And even keep that hug like a little bit of a bob as well, like you're in the water. Yeah, that's it. Is in the circle, yeah. So we go straight into that, and that will suit the sound.
Okay, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4.
Yeah.
Each chapter is very different in in the sites and in the history of the site, but also people's connection to where they're dancing. I think that really shows through in their performance and their interaction with the environment.
Having older performers is such a gift inside this project because they bring that long connection to this place.
You just do what you're told. Ben. Bit fast. This community, what can I say? I love it here. They're amazing, this community. It's got a really good, strong foundation. It's amazing here. You feel so welcomed. They welcome you, they embrace you, and it's up to you if you want to go along the ride with them. You'll have fun. I know, I've had so much fun here with them, yeah.
I created sounds from what's around us, so a lot of most of the rhythmic sounds throughout the piece are created from sticks and rocks. Most of the synth sounds and melodic bits come from capturing birds and other sounds around the site, and spreading them across a keyboard.
So this is dress rehearsal, and different to like in a normal show where you kind of get to dress rehearsal and everything's schmicker. This is more like an adventurous dress rehearsal. But also what's cool is that we're outside, and so you kind of get that breeze blowing and the feeling of the space, and that that helps.
It's just I'd stay in the background, but I just make sure everybody's there and everything goes okay so that everyone else can shine.
Go into the boulder, at the back, and then you go, go into that, and then you look down.
There's lots of couples, there's father, daughter, it's a real family. Rongarup's, it's the story here. I mean, it's magical here, it's sacred here, and the community knows that too. You automatically feel that this place is sacred. It's alive and well.
I've seen a speed camera.
Oh, you got it.
Thank you guys. We'll see you at 2 o'clock.
Lovely. Do you want to start with... Alright, you can... Oh, mascara.
I've got my own mascara,
okay,
so I'll take care of that.
You can mascara.
Yep.
Don't make me cry.
This site in particular just is really special to me, and my home is only an hour away from here, and the audience is quite a lot from home too. So I think the dancers as well are really feeling the power of the range. The stars, they look at that range towards the end of this chapter, and it's this real honouring of that ancient granite. And throughout this whole project we were trying to honour this sense of time, like the links between long, long ago, like Gondwana time, and the time of now. And it's been hard to find a way to do that through dance, but just with the stars looking at the range, it's just like there's time right there.
Obviously the sound's all really important, but the most important thing for me was to get the audience members to really feel.
On site, if you're connected, You've acknowledged, you've respected, you've trusted. The land, the environment will tell you. And sometimes it's not really the movement, but it's what's here and how they're going to express it from here. And it connects to the environment, and the movement becomes so much bigger and so much, there's so much more impact. And they feel it too, the performers, because now they are in, this is where they're going to be standing. And of course, alive and well, whew, that land, it connects to them. Poof, and then they just, yeah, it's amazing.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to the Prongraps, which is part of our traditional land of Menang people, and ask that we all pay our respect to elders, past and present. My name is Shirley Williams. I am from the Colbung family. I was born out here on country and also the last remaining traditional elder to have been born here. The depth of my love for this Prongraps has no bounds.
That setting, or the stage props, if you like, was the natural bushland of what we're talking about. You can't create that in a facade. You know, the leaves were moving, the birds were singing, the wind was blowing, you know, it was all natural. So it was a natural stage setting, and I think that's what lent credibility to the whole thing.
The place is so deeply steeped in each work, and it's the people of the place performing it. As you know, the travelling team or as the audience, you are getting submerged into that place through this creative process. So, you know, the travelling from one chapter to the next chapter, and the story travelling as well, is really a really important part of the feeling of the project.
I was actually travelling with Annette, and just because of, you know, what happened just upstream, it was a feeling of, yeah, I can't describe it, but it was one of sadness. Annette asked if we wanted to have a look at the memorial there. We felt like we couldn't go onto the memorial site unless we had an elder or community member there to take us onto that site, even though it wasn't the initial massacre site itself. It may not make that much sense to a lot of people, but for an Indigenous person with the knowledge of knowing what happened, it's just such a feeling of really overwhelming. But I guess, you know, that meeting the community members who are really wanting to be part, it was actually, you know, a real uplifting experience.
I've learnt a lot more about Aboriginal culture because I didn't realise I didn't know anything about it, pretty much. Actually, my grandparents own this property here, but I've grown up in Bunbury for most of my life, and that's where my family's travelled from. I've learnt more about like the spiritual side of the bush, which I again had no idea about.
Look, I had a very rational understanding of connection and the environment, but this has developed a real emotional response or feeling towards it in a way that I didn't hold prior to this process. So that's been really profound for me, actually.
This is the perfect venue for it, with all the she oaks, and Ravensthorpe's just so beautiful in the Fitzgerald National Park and this area, so we're very blessed.
Basic awareness matters. Many people had never heard of the Fitzgerald Biosphere before and had never heard of Gondwana Link before we started this project, and now they know.
For me, as a fellow who learned about the wonders of the southwest bush living in Ravensthorpe, when it was still very much a pioneer town, and the dominant thinking was, how do we knock over more bush and how do we have more farms? The past of Ravensthorpe was just totally invisible back then. The richness of the bush was almost invisible. The Noongar past just wasn't there. And you know, I lived there 16 years and I keep well connected with the place. It was through Stars Descend that I got to sit around a campfire with a wonderful group of Noongar elders and hear stories that just blew me away.
We have these two dominants, you know, whether it's the old science and the Western science, and when you bring them together, it creates a third space. It's a safe space that we can begin talking about. In this third space here, the commonality is caring for country. So how do we do it with the two, bringing the two together? And we're doing it. Look at this, we're bringing art in. Who would have thought about that, you know, back in the 1800s? Yeah.
I hadn't really gone to Ravensthorpe before, but knowing of the history and the sadness of what's happened, I felt a great sadness as well. I was very glad that Simon was there, Simon Stewart, as a, you know, my co-choreographer. In Indigenous culture, he's a male, and he would have that knowledge and understanding and standing in the community. Simon would be out the front doing most of the choreography and seeing how things worked, and then I would be in, you know, amongst the cast, performing with them and rehearsing with them.
I think it's really incredible that something this big and this kind of, with this many moving parts, has been done across a colossal regional area. I think it should hopefully really kind of show just how much potential there is for kind of massive scale, really, really beautiful art and performances to happen in places where people generally don't think they happen.
I mean, most of the time we were in Ravensthorpe, it was really warm and so nice, like beach weather. But the days leading up were quite overcast and rainy and drizzly, and, you know, and we kept looking at, you know, the forecast for the day of performance, and we're thinking, oh, you know, is it going to be okay? Do we have it indoors now, or do we go out on site? It basically wasn't until the last minute where we thought there'd be a window of opportunity, and we just went for it.
I feel like that we need to give blessings when we acknowledge this country. Kura, yay, Budawan. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Nitja, nunga, wern buja. Listen to the spirits of the land.
It's great to be on country. It lifts our spirit. When Aboriginal people, when our spirits are feeling down, we will come back to country and sit down and listen to the birds and listen to the country, and the country helps to heal us. And when we do come back, this song and dance that you're going to hear tonight, it's the coming of all people.
Kaya nicha koap ninalangin mangalangin yay. Demanga manga nganang mot. My family, my old people, yo. Demanga manga nganang mot balang bulla jen badlangin nicha buja. Our old people, their many feet over the eons travelled this earth.
Guarantee mind, agenda din nine, the coconut den den den, for my organ, the bun, yorgan, the bending, arabin, darabin, gender din nine, the coconut, a den, for my organ, the bun.
We were standing out on the outskirts of the performance area, but it'd still be sort of drizzling and overcast, and it all added to the performance itself. And I think, the audience was more than aware and happy to be there and happy to be on site and happy to witness the next chapter. To have it out on country, I think, just meant so much to everyone, especially to the performers there. It seemed like a confined little she oak grove with a small cast and a small audience, but it was big.
I love the formation of twisted trees, and it's almost like our own pathway that we've had to wend our way through it, like that, and finally we get to the top and we've got this canopy that envelopes us and protects us and urges us and encourages us to keep going and to, keep the strength up. So yeah, the trees, we call the trees Murt because that's family.
To have 130, 140 people in the Ravensthorpe Recreation Centre, a quarter of them Noongar, and the wonderful music coming from the Noongar folk in the band and the conversations outside, that for me personally was incredibly deep and moving and a real milestone moment. We are making progress. Bush around Ravensthorpe is being looked after, some of it's being put back, and the Noongar people are being welcomed back into their country. And that showed so much through the performance and the night.
Last chapter. Oh my God, it's so hard. I mean, it's great, it's amazing. It's amazing that we're here. It's bloody raining again today. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of sadness creeping into the team, I think, that it's all, coming to an end. One more day to go. It feels like I've had to use every single tool that I have learnt in my entire career on this project. And then I've learnt a ton as well. Like, I've learnt so much about cultural protocols, about collaboration, about surrendering to the things that you can't control, about a style of leadership that is, hopefully, it allows a lot more space for other people to be leaders as well.
Okay, everyone, let's go to your starting positions. Let's do a run through.
I studied music, I did a degree in composition, and through that I discovered that the first ever songbirds came from Australia originally, and I thought, well, what better way to engage with music than to use locally recorded birdsong, you know, as a way to allow Australian culture to contribute to the world stage. It's such an organic process, you know, like I write some music and Para's like, I love it. And then I like a little bit self-conscious about the music, but then I see the movement that goes with it and I get chills on the back of my neck. You know, it's just so beautiful, the meeting of these two different worlds has been really special.
Yesterday I thought I'm never doing a performance again. I was like, oh, a bit anxious. So I had a little word to myself, but now I'm just excited. So I'm really happy for this moment to share the story and you know, show what we've been practicing for so long.
What I love about doing this chapter here is it shows the audience how diverse the Gondwana Link is, because you just come into this really different country with all these salmon gums, this different vegetation, and the vastness of the Great Western Woodlands. I mean, it's right there. We're here, we're on the edge of it. And I just love the fact that so many of the audience are actually travelling for this chapter. Across the entire project, people did not know, had never heard of the Great Western Woodlands. Like, I hadn't, you know, not that long ago. As Keith said, once it had a name, the Great Western Woodlands, we could protect it.
Until relatively recently, the Great Western Woodland was known as that bit of bush left over from the wheat belt. We've learnt that a mature woodland out here is 500, 600 or more years old, which is pretty staggering. As you go out towards the drier country, the trees get bigger. Now that blows every bit of science out of the water. It's big enough to still have relictual populations of lots of the wildlife we've lost from everywhere else. And it's now coming under good, culturally led conservation management. You know, this now is one of the wonders of the world, and we stumbled over it and put it up in lights, which is a really nice feeling.
I'm happy that we've come here to Kalgoorlie Boulder, and particularly to here to Garlgula Park. I am happy that you've come here to see us dance and to see the stars descend. Dendrona Landarpeni means the stars descend. So, on behalf of the traditional owners of this land, we welcome you. I ask that the spirits of our ancestors, of our grandmothers and grandfathers, look after us. So, on behalf of the traditional owners of this land, we welcome you, and on behalf of all that walk our lands with us as we walk together, welcome you. Thank you, and welcome, and enjoy the show. Thank you.
It's over. I don't want it to be over, but I'm kind of glad that it's over. But it's never over. I want it to keep going.
That's right.
Like it's a bit surreal, but I mean, it felt right to finish it here.
Oh, it's just beautiful location, and it was a real coming together because we did a reprise from the last chapters. We had our colours on from the last chapters, and we were bringing everybody from the last chapters with us, and it just felt like it felt really right. It felt really good.
That's what it was. It was the feeling of 5 different stories existing inside the body at one time. That's what the feeling was. And carrying all of those people and all those stories and that place and that connection, it somehow is living inside of this. And I don't think that that's ever going to change.
They've done something that no one else will probably ever do. There's a huge amount of humility that was asked of them because, you know, in some places they only had 2 days to learn the show and step into it, and so it can't be that like absolutely polished perfection that some dancers like, and I didn't want that in there. It needed to be alive and real and like of the place, which isn't perfect, and they were just willing to accept the reality of the project, and that's an enormous act of generosity. This project trusted a lot of people, like hundreds of people, to show up and do the best they could. And I think they did that. Like, I think you feel it when you watch it. That person is absolutely doing the best they could. And their best is really incredibly beautiful.
To see men and traditional farmers dancing and wriggling their way through, you know, some of these movements, it was just incredible, and I think demonstrates how it attracted people from all backgrounds. There was a message there for an invitation for inclusion from all walks of life, ages and stages, you know.
Bit of a tendency of the Western human to live within imagined boundaries, and you know, they can tolerate a bit of environmentalism and a bit of this, and then the wackiness of modern dance comes along into their community, and a number of the individuals who danced also, you know, they go, what? And all of a sudden there's a whole new side to them, a whole new side to their community, and a whole new side to their relationship with the world around them. And I know for many of the individuals, particularly those who were brave enough to come out and perform, but also in the audience, it's been significant personal growth for a lot of people, and help them continue going forth into stuff that they don't quite understand, but it's really interesting, which is what the world is. That's the place we live in.
So movement, community, and I felt there was something bigger than just a show. Sorry. It was more than just a dance performance. And that really spoke to me. That idea that we were coming together and creating to support the Gondwana Link.
It's made me rethink a lot of my perspectives and priorities, and I probably view myself in a different way in respect to nature and feel more connected with the environment through the process, and hold the imperative to look to the future more deeply now.
I think this is connecting people's heads and hearts. They can see that we're doing the restoration work and the protection work and so on and so forth. But this has unleashed a lot of joy in people and a lot of hope.
The Stars Descend was about something much bigger than just one artist's vision or one artist's practice. You know, it was about that combined effort.
This project has had an absolute ripple effect, in my life. I had ideas, coming through while we were moving, and then I was like, I'd love to paint this, and I'd love to create this workshop, and I'd love to, and because it's an energy, like being inspired, and you feel love during that, you feel love for nature, you feel love for others. There was a lot of respect, and that's why this project worked so well, because it's big, it's huge, and that everybody did their best to be there and support one another. Like it had to be a success, right? I couldn't see it any other way.
I'm still immensely curious about the cleverness, I suppose, the sophistication with which Noongar values and Noongar voices were there, but we weren't replicating traditional culture, and we weren't doing some slightly modified modern culture. It really came together, and you could see that in the enthusiasm of both cultures for what was happening.
Again, one of my favourite cliches is ne buja, listen to the land. Just take some time out and sit and listen to the land, and you'll hear the messages, and you'll get that sense of connectiveness.